Hello, my friends, and welcome to Quartet. So nice to have you with us today. It's a pretty sunny spring, almost summery day here in West Virginia, where we're coming to you from our little resort town in Berkeley Springs, just 100 miles from Washington and Baltimore. And we do this every 2 weeks, fortnightly, to get together to have a in-depth conversation about some extraordinary aspect, some important, deep aspect of the extraordinary change that's going on in the world today. I'm John Petersen from the Arlington Institute, and I'm joined, as we usually are, happily, by our good friends, by Penny Kelly. Hello, Penny Kelly.
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. Hi, Gregg Kingsley. It's good to be here again.
And Gregg Braden, who will be with us, both Penny and Gregg will be with us here for transition talks in the coming months. Hello, Gregg.
Hey, it's good to see everyone, Kingsley. I love your new background, Penny. It's good to see you. And John, I'm coming from our sunny studio just outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico today.
And hi, Kingsley. Nice to have you here, of course, always.
Yeah, thank you, John. Penny, Gregg, coming to you from my home in the center of the UK.
Yeah. So it's great to have you with us, those of you who are tuning in here today. So it's time that we talk about our subject of the day. 25 years ago or more, I had a discussion with an admiral friend of mine, a Navy admiral friend of mine, who in the not too distant past had just come away from having a briefing from the National Security Agency. And keep in mind, this is 25 years ago, and he wasn't going to tell me about what they do because I didn't have the clearances nor the need to know that. But his comment was interestingly illuminating. He said, "Oh, John, the bottom line is that there isn't anything they can't find out about you, and that they don't track." And that was interesting and novel to me back then, because it was back far enough that the internet wasn't very long, very old, and there was still remembered, dial telephones and all of those kinds of things. And you had in mind the idea that you had to kind of tap a phone and some of the kind of stuff that comes from movies and such. And the fact that a government agency would have that kind of be that ubiquitous and that broad and kind of this blanket statement by a very sophisticated, very knowledgeable person was really kind of took me back and made me kind of start to look around. But since that time, what we've had is a whole series of increasingly intrusive technologies that the most iconic being, of course, cell phones and smartphones, which follow us around anywhere and know exactly where we are, no matter what, whether we've turned them on or off. And then you find out about regular computers, and you realize that they have built into the chip structure a layer, an operating layer that is the most fundamental one that you cannot access. If you turn your computer off or anything, you don't turn this off if you're connected to the internet. That sources from outside of the internet who have access to that layer can literally turn on your machine, turn on your camera and your microphone, and it will look like your machine is not even turned on, but yet it's operating. Anyway, you've got just a full spectrum, and we haven't even talked about all this, the cameras that are everywhere when you look around. I mean, in the UK, London is famous for having so many of them, thousands of them all over the kind of place. It just is giant. Yeah, I have a lot of history with the government. I know a little bit about what they do and how they do it, and the notion that they're doing this all for my benefit is a real reach that's hard for me to believe. And so So you've now set up kind of a dilemma downstream that says, well, maybe all of the technology, maybe even the evolution of humanity is moving toward a time where there is no privacy, where there's openness and cross kind of communications. Everybody knows kind of everything about everyone else. And but the only context in which that works is if it's a trusting kind of relationship, and you feel that everybody's in this thing together, and they're not going to take advantage of you. And so how does that work? Where is this going? That's the question today.
What you're talking about now, the surveillance society, I believe, is an unstoppable trend. I don't think we're going to dial it back in terms of capabilities. And I think the answer to the question is, if we choose to participate in society in a meaningful way, we will lose our privacy. The question is that a bad thing? And how is the information that is available about us, how is it being used? And I think that's where we do have the opportunity to direct this in one way or another. It's happening on multiple levels. I'm just going to give you an example, and I'm not saying I agree with what I'm going to share with you here. A number of feeds have come up in the last 2 weeks from an organization that I spent some time looking into called the Creative Society. And it is a proposal for how to move forward with a global social revolution that is based in surveillance and AI. And their whole proposition is that the world is run by a centralized artificial intelligence that we have taught to be benevolent. When I look into what they're proposing and the videos and the conferences, they're really well produced. There's a lot of money behind this. I am questioning the motives of what is behind it and who is actually driving it. And that's another conversation. But I'm using this as an example of how the exact situation that you're talking about, John, is being capitalized on now to propose something new. I think there are probably some elements of this that could be functional. I would never go for what they're proposing. I think if we are going to choose to participate, we are going to relinquish privacy. And I think what we're going to see is an entire industry emerging to help counter that. And a lot of that's going to be based on the artificial intelligence that we're all being made aware of right now.
I would start out by saying, okay, what is privacy? Why do we think we need it? Where does this need come from? And if you look at just a simple definition of privacy, it's the need to not be responsible for what you are putting out in terms of consciousness, because consciousness is a frequency set. Your consciousness, everybody has a unique signature. When you program AI, for instance, you have all of your frequencies go into, even if you're, what was it? Was it you or Greg said, to teach AI to be benevolent? I don't know that we can do that yet, because we are not benevolent and we can't pretend to be benevolent. And all of those frequencies that are part of us are going to be embedded in whatever we put into that AI. And eventually, in situations of stress, that AI is going to end up having the same results that we would have in moments of stress, because frequencies create other frequencies. They're called binaural and trinaural and quadnaural frequencies. What you put out there, it stays rooted in you, number one, and your consciousness is embedded in everything you create, everything you say, everything you do or think, et cetera, et cetera. So that whole need for not being responsible for what we have put out there is followed on by another need, which is the need to not be judged. People hide what they do because they don't want other people to think badly of them, or they don't want other people to judge them. And that that need is real. And then there's the technological aspect of it, which is, we don't want to be controlled. Why is that becoming an issue? If you look at that symbolically, it's becoming an issue because we are not controlling ourselves. We are not disciplining ourselves. So, we are moving. If we want to move into higher consciousness, we have to learn self-discipline of our consciousness, of our thinking. We have to learn what is higher consciousness, and how do we get there, and how do we maintain that? And if we do that, then we're not going to have the kind of world we have right now, period. So the whole thing about the surveillance system is a symbol to us. Hey, if you don't discipline yourself and watch yourself and manage yourself and control your own thinking, we'll do it for you.
Yes, I mean, Penny, the point you made about the surveillance that we have is a signifier of the stage we're at. Now, technology in our state and our human civilization is not a level playing field, and we know that. The question is, of course, we're all kind of concerned about privacy, but it suggests that we thought we had privacy to begin with. Now, if we realize that actually since the onset of technology, especially the technological age, we've not really had privacy. And I think this is part of our kind of illusionary way we set ourselves up. Now, we think we have freedom. Now, only when the actual constraints against freedom became very visible in the last few years, we realized actually we don't have freedom. And it's the same with privacy. Privacy is a thing that we've been allowed to kind of feel that we have, like we are a sovereign self, etc. But because we are a part of this society, this state of the human condition, we don't have the privacy that we've been led to believe. Now, the holy grail of I think, privacy is to get inside our heads. So far, privacy's been like monitoring our movements, our actions, are we a suspect, etc. And I think now, to get to the next stage of where this technological playing field, let's say those people who run the technology, they would like to get into our heads. And then that's a question, of course, of wavelengths. What wavelengths and frequencies are they able to control to be able not only to put certain nudges of thoughts in our heads, but to be able to scan the wavelength landscape and to pick up certain frequencies being emanated by our brain waves, etc. So, that's the question that, yes, John, you asked, where is this going? If this timeline that we are on actually goes down this extension and doesn't trigger off, then I think it's inevitable that any notion of privacy will be out of the window, because the last bastion of human privacy is keeping your thoughts to yourself. And so really, I think what it comes down to again is technology is one side of it. It's the hardware and it's the software. But the other side of it is technology has to align with the consciousness of where humanity is going. So unless we can kind of, either we can start to shift, or something that we've talked about many times, the wild card comes in to alter the planetary frequency, that could alter the trajectory of technology.
The technology has advanced faster than the morality of how we apply it in our lives. It's not right, wrong, good or bad. The tech, it is. We get to choose how it's applied. And I think the answer to your question is something it's on the national media front right now with artificial intelligence. This is what's pushing the envelope, but it applies to transhumanism, to biological implants, to all those things. We as a society and as families and communities must identify the values that we cherish, and we must make those values the foundation of the policies that we allow and the laws that are created.
Let's look at the frequency side of it. Why don't we change the water? Now, we know that a saltwater fish cannot live in fresh water. All our technologies have been program designed for a certain operating environment and a certain kind of frequencies to operate through. And that is so far what we've been living through ourselves and evolving through. But what if let's say the waters changed, the frequency we know, and Greg, you talk about this, about the core, the planet stopping, and we know the frequencies are going through some alteration on the planet. What if we have geological frequency shift? We have a consciousness field frequency shift that somehow change the environment whereby the pre or present program technologies can't operate in the way they are operating in a nefarious way because they don't align with the frequency shift that's been happening on the grander scheme.
I think
Penny?
that split is already, I mean, we're talking about technology, and that technology is developed and run by what you call the subset, Kingsley. That's not what I consider to be my government or my military or my people. That's something very nefarious. I think the people are struggling to recognize that that's not our government. I mean, it's our government in name only. And once we realize that, we'll do exactly what both of you, you and Greg, have been talking about, is like, hey, it's time. We're at the point where we have to take a step.
Yeah, well, this is one of obviously a whole bunch of kind of things, including healthcare and economics and other such things that are all pushing us toward this space of essentially big decision.
Right.
There is a point out there. If you see these converging forces, these trends, these vectors that are coming together, there's a point out there where the bias, the transition, the hurdle, it crosses over the top, and suddenly everybody says, "Wait a second, no, we're not doing this anymore." In the meantime, we hope all of you who are our viewers who will come back and visit with us. We'll be back in another couple of weeks. And this is only one of a variety of kind of programs, really interesting things that we do here at the Arlington Institute. We've got transition talks, and we've got a free newsletter called Future Edition and other such things. And you can find out everything that you need to know about us at arlingtoninstitute.org. And we hope that you'll come and to participate in any of a number of things. There's a lot of free stuff there that's available. So we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Take care.
Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Yeah.
Excellent.